co-host Thomas and I meet with an amazing individual talking about poker, talking about business, talking about marketing. Joey Ingram is up next. Welcome back to Blast Talks podcast. Welcome, Joey, to the call. How are you, sir?
What's up, Jeff? How's it going, buddy?
I'm doing freaking fantastic. This is going to be a really, really fun call. And the reason why is because I know absolutely diddly squat about poker. And so you're going to just tear me to shreds. And Thomas, that's why I had to bring my big gun on. My co-host, Thomas, he's on here because he is all up in that world and knows it, in and out. And, I got friends that, Dewey Ho, so he's in like the WSOP and all that fun stuff. But it's not only that I wanted to have you on is because obviously to create any sort of success, there's a story behind it. And that's what the podcast is about, is sharing stories to eliminate excuses, because the more stories we share, the less excuses are relevant to anybody that listens on creating any type of success. So we've had amputees, we've had business, we've had realtors, we'd have single moms, it's just all across the platform. And came across your profile and I was like, I absolutely need to figure out how to get this guy on, because one, I don't know anything about poker, so that's just going to be fun in itself. But two, the guy just knows about content. He gets it. Because you're in a lot of verticals in creating content. You're on Instagram. You've got your own podcast, right? And so I'd love for you to share with us a little bit about that. And just to start off, to create some context, share with the listeners a little bit about who you are, where you came from, and just share, let them get to know you.
Wow, that's a
long introduction.
Yeah, it's an intense question, because I feel like there's no easy answer to some degree, but I'll try to make it easy, I guess. I started playing poker. I grew up in Chicago, outside Chicago, in Northwest Indiana area, about 45 minutes south of the city. And I always wanted to, get away from that area. I kind of wanted to explore the world, get away from my family, get away from the people I grew up with, because I felt like everything I admired was slightly different than what I found in the suburban life and that sort of life. So I got out of that place as soon as I could. I moved to the city of Chicago, lived in a very, 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 very small bedroom with three other roommates. I slept on an air mattress. My mom cried when she saw where I was living at after I moved out. She saw the place and she was like, "This is fucking terrible. I sent you to Catholic schools and paid $5,000 a semester for you to come sleep on the fucking floor here of like a shitty, I don't even know, 80-year-old apartment sort of thing." Like it's like a fourth floor thing in Lincoln Park in Chicago, right above a resale clothing store type of place.
Wow.
And it's like, oh my God, in retrospect, right?
It just sounds so Rounders. I don't know, something about it. I feel like a Rounders feel from it.
It's more like a Rounders go down about 100 levels. It's like what you'd imagine one of the shittiest places that you could possibly live in some ways. In terms of location, it was great. It was right by the water there. It was in a really great area. But in terms of like the actual living conditions, to me, I was happy. I was happy to get out of the house, because when I would go to the casino sometimes, I wasn't a professional poker player at this time, but I'm not making this short, am I? Yeah, I really got to shorten this up. But
you're good.
I would like sleep on people's floors and stuff like that. Like I'd go to my friend's
house,
I'd sleep on the floor, and we'd watch like poker videos and like training material on DVDs back in what was like 2005 or something like that. So this was awesome. I'm like, all right, my mom's crying. I'm like, "Mom, this is great. Like, look, I'm out of the house.
I'm living the dream."
So,
yeah.
So yeah, I did like a lot of service industry jobs for a while, bartending, waitering, I did like promotional modeling type of stuff, where they'd hire you, go on like Craigslist, and you'd go to an event and sometimes you'd dress up, sometimes you take off the shirt. Like I used to work out all the time back in the day. I was obsessed with that. So I did a few of these shows in downtown Chicago on Michigan Avenue. I remember we all had our shirts off. We're like carrying around a fucking canoe for some Paris Hilton reality show back in the day.
I love the struggle. I love that struggle.
It was a lot of fun. We met a lot of friends, met a lot of women friends,
I bet you did, with your shirt off. You were like, "Hey, I don't even need to check it out. It's already right there."
I was like, "They're paying me to do this. This is cool." But I found poker when I was about 19, 20, and I played it a little bit growing up just with family friends, but I saw it on TV like most people did, in terms on ESPN. And then I did the normal thing, which is you go to the casino and you lose all your money, and people think you have a gambling problem, and they report that, like my mom and my friends made me a book. They
Oh
made
no.
my friend Crystal made me a self-help book about getting a gambling help because she thought I was addicted to gambling. But I was like,
Poker's
fuck
not
that.
gambling.
Yeah.
Is that what you
Well,
said?
at the time I was I didn't know that, right? I didn't know it wasn't gambling, but in my mind I was like, there are people making it. There are people that are on poker forums that are the same age as me, posting pictures with cars, and they live in these houses together, and there's these cool setups. So I was like, if it's possible, like I just believe that I could do it no matter what.
Right.
No, I
So
love that. So how much of that, like
yeah,
all the negativity, because especially when you hear about the stories of these people that achieve success, like Bruno Mars, right? Who Thomas and I have been fortunate enough to know in some regards, is like there was a huge struggle. Granted, his family very much was supportive, but people don't know about the living in the basement and living in the garages and the struggling and the crashing on couches until you hack the system and you
right.
figure it out, right? Getting into the music industry or whatnot. And same for you. Hearing the story, I'm like, yeah, this is like everybody that made it big. There were way more no's, and there was so much negativity, and there's your loved ones coming from their side of the story. It's because they care, because they want the best for you. And it's like, hey, clearly what you're doing is not working, so you need to try something different. But
Right.
when you're so driven with that, did that negativity kind of like just add more fuel to the fire?
It's a good question. I mean, I don't know if it did or not. I think anytime because I was kind of always a little bit more public when I started playing poker on the internet, and I'd always like blog or blog. I used to write a lot, and then I'd post a lot
Okay.
of stuff on the forums and stuff like that. So I always got a lot of negativity when I
Hmm.
first started because I don't know, I was pretty like a psychopath. I love grinding a lot. I love kind of battling, talking shit in the chats with different people that we also play with and stuff like that at the time back in the day. So it never really impacted me that much, right? It just
You
I
were
didn't
used to it.
yeah, like I didn't really care. It motivated me more than anything. I think when people doubt you or people say you can't do this, and to me, I just didn't. I think I just really wanted to make it, and I was going to do whatever it took to make it at poker. And I think when I first thought that was when I first made $1,000 playing online after I went through my degenerate phase, and once I found bankroll management, and once I gain more knowledge about what exactly it means to be a successful online poker player and a poker player in general. And I changed up my entire approach. Instead of going to the casino with $400 and playing the 1-2 game and losing it and then wanting to drive off the bridge on the way home, I found that you could play online 5 cent 10. I'm serious. We used to drive up me and my friend Arnab. We would go drive home on the Skyway in Chicago, and I'd be like, bro, you want to just drive off the fucking bridge or what? I mean, it's not funny in retrospect, right? But it's at the time, this was
It's
like,
real
dude,
life.
we're so fucking bad. We need to kill ourselves. I mean, it's extreme, right? But this is what gambling and this is what failure at whatever it is makes you do sometimes, right? When you're competing
Yeah.
and when you used to have success at things, and when you are used to doing well at things, then when you're failing at something and you're not sure why, sometimes you react a certain kind of emotional way that isn't quite logical in retrospect, but at the time,
Well,
I didn't
I
understand.
think with poker more than anything though is every time you fail, you learn a big lesson. Whether it be bankroll management or pot management, calculating the pot, you learn a big or a tell. So I think you learn a lot from failing, especially in poker and in real life. Just every time you fail, you learn something from it. You don't fail, you actually learn.
Right.
It's a
I think
lesson. It's a lesson learned.
Yeah, it's a kind of interesting thought because you have to be mindful to be able to really learn something from the mistake or from the failure or whatever. And I think a lot of people out there, myself included, aren't very mindful during those moments of failure. So there is no contemplation on what exactly went wrong. It's just let's get back after it and try to do better next time. And it's a very important step in getting better at something is actually contemplating and deep thought in terms of why did I fail? And for me, I didn't do that for a very long time. I just sort of kept at it. It was more quantity versus quality. And that's still something that I do now that probably holds me back from success in certain areas that I pursue it in, is that I don't really have that deep sort of contemplation. Okay, what went wrong? Why did I lose here? Or why did I fail at whatever it is that I'm doing here? It's more just like, all right, fuck it, let's get back after it and let's hit it head on. That hasn't always been the best approach for me in the past, and it's something I'm trying to get better at with what I'm working at now and what I'm focusing on now. But yeah, that's a tough thing. I think people that can deal with failure the best are people who are mindful enough to at least consider like, well,
You're right.
how can I get better at what
You
I'm
can
doing?
hang your head and be like, damn, I just lost 500. I don't believe I lost 500. Oh, I suck. I fucking suck. Or you can go, why did I lose that? Maybe I shouldn't have bet that turn. So he didn't come, he didn't come over the top of me because he knew I was bluffing. Or, you kind of go over your head, like, what mistakes did I make? And you're right. In the moment, a lot of people don't contemplate. They don't think why they failed. They only think about, damn, I failed, right? And in
100%. I
life,
mean,
you can't do
listen,
that.
you're farther ahead than a lot of. I mean, obviously, you said you got a poker experience, but what you're saying, it seems like obvious in some sense. But I forget to do that sometimes, and
Oh,
a
absolutely.
lot of other people out there forget to do that as well too. Because I talk with them, I get a lot of questions from other poker players, and what you just said, it sounds so simple in theory, but when you're
It
in the heat of the
does.
moment and you just lost, sometimes
Yeah.
you're not really sitting there contemplating.
When you
Like,
get that
do I
bad
really
beat,
need to play that hand that way? And
when you get that third heart on the river, and you're like, oh my god, how how do we get here?
Mhm.
So
So
yeah,
how do you correlate the resemblances of the emotional roller coaster of playing poker with the emotional roller coaster of living life?
How do I think they're together? You mean?
Like, how would you say that they're very similar? Because the way that you guys are explaining this, I'm like, this is real life. This is daily life for the majority of people out there, because
Right.
there's so many emotional things like right, the thing they say, right, if you stub your toe when you first get out of bed, your entire day is ruined. And it's like, really, is your entire day ruined, or is just the first 5 seconds of your day ruined?
Right. No,
So why are
it's
you
tough. I
letting
think
that ruin the rest of your 16 hours that you're going to be awake just because the first 10 seconds sucked?
right.
that's
You
like
know what I
losing.
mean?
That's like sitting down and losing your first buy-in on the first hand. You get pocket aces and you lose, and you're like, first
Yeah, I
hand.
mean, like it's in any profession,
But you
right?
buy.
Because you got football, like say you have the kicker, right? He missed a field goal, then he missed a PAT. You put him out there, the other coach calls a timeout to ice him, and boom, he's in his brain,
Mm-hmm.
and he misses that one because
It's a good question.
it's
I've never really thought about
psychological.
that question at all in terms of, I think my own personal poker life is much more of an emotional roller coaster it was than
Hmm.
Real
my
life.
regular life. I don't think my regular life,
Was
I'm
it the
not very.
escape?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I thought about this a lot because, I sat around really contemplating this summer in terms of what I want to do with my life, because
Hmm.
the poker landscape is not what it was when I started. Online poker is not anything close to what it was. And I think for me, once I've realized and once I built a content business, and once I've put so much studying into brand building, into marketing, into content itself, and
Hmm.
pretty confident I can do that in any industry. I could help people out. I could do it for myself. It could be for products. It could be for anything like that. I'm pretty
Just
confident that.
Gary V, the bad boy.
Well, I mean, I certainly thought about doing more of like
That dude's
a
on a whole
on
other level
camera
of content.
person. Yeah, like on camera person in that industry. But it can go a lot of directions, right? It's like a decision when you know you, or when you think, or when you believe in yourself that you can do anything you want to do, then you have to decide what is it exactly that you want to do. And I've always known what I wanted to do over the past 10 years. And this was the point I knew I would get to at some point in time, when I would achieve what I wanted to achieve in the content space and in the actually playing poker space. And then I would be in a position where I'd be able to decide what I want to do next, sort of thing like
Hmm.
that. So that's sort of the point I'm at now, is just trying to figure out, okay, what does that look like? Is that more mainstream content? Is that more poker content? Is that more of a mainstream podcast? Is it working together? Is it trying to get a job with a company like UFC in their content department? Is it trying to work with brands or personal? So it's like
All
that's
of the
really
above.
right. That's the spot I'm at right now in trying to figure out. And in my mind, it would be all of the above, but
Right.
it doesn't necessarily work out that way
Don't
for
take
me.
off too big of a bite.
So
Drown.
are you still playing poker? Do you play online still?
I still play a little bit, but I just, for me, I get so obsessed with it and I get so into it, kind of like the escape thing you mentioned earlier, Jeff, about it was poker an escape. And I think it was an escape in a way, but at the same time, it was also me pursuing something that I saw that I could have success in.
Uh-huh.
So was it an escape from doing things I didn't want to do? Well, I think we all find things that are these escapes,
No,
but
absolutely.
right. Was it an escape in terms of deeply thinking about why I am the way I am, 100%, not even knowing that, not even realizing that either too. And I don't think it was an active decision I made to keep playing poker to escape from some sort of like real life emotions or real life thoughts. I think that habit came from just when I was a teenager, and I would play these games all the time, and I would be by myself, and I'd be in my own little world, and I'd play sports with people. So I'd always be in these sort of competitive environments ever since I was a very young teenager, and I started playing online gaming. So kind of coming up from there, it was just always the way that I was. I was just wired to beat these games or have success at these games or keep getting better and better at whatever it is that I did. So I think in terms of now, the idea of now I'm more actively aware, okay, am I trying to escape from deeply thinking, or is it this programming in me that I just have this habit built up where I do these certain things, or trying to get a better understanding of where those things fall. And yeah, I'm sure it was an escape in a lot of ways, right? Anytime I felt anxiety, I just played poker. And I think that's why I did so well. It was anytime I'd sit there and be like, all right, what should I do? And I don't really know. I was like, I'll put a poker session in.
Play what you love, right?
Watch poker.
I mean, it sounds like poker, you're very passionate about poker. It sounds, because you know what, I'm going to tell you, I fell in love with poker a long time ago. We did a lot of home games because in Hawaii, you know, I'm sure you know, there's a lot of Hawaii poker players. And I fell in love with the game, and you know,
they got good somewhere.
Yeah, I can get passionate about it, talking about poker, and it sounds like you can too. So it sounds like if you have a passion for poker, and I was looking on your Instagram site, and you had like Gus Hansen on there. You had a few other poker players on there. I was like, man, and I think you even broadcasted like a poker hand or some bad beats.
I'll talk a little bit about my content strategy specifically. So on YouTube, I've been doing content a little more serious about for the past 5 years. So when I started doing content, it was because I am, like you mentioned, me being passionate about poker. Well, that's exactly how I was. I felt like I had an extreme amount of love and passion for the game itself, or what it's done for me. And I felt like at the time there weren't actual good players making content. So I'm like, well, I'm really good at playing poker. I'm really good at Pot in Omaha. I have like an over the top amount of energy, and I always knew I was good at empowering people to believe in themselves in some weird way. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start doing content. I'm going to try to grow Pot in Omaha, which is my game specifically, which there's Texas Hold'em and then there's PLO, which are the two big games. And then
what's the difference for the non-poker players?
Right, exactly. Yeah, there's two main games, and Texas Hold'em is much more popular in terms of what you see on television, and Pot in Omaha is popular on the internet, but not as popular in real life. But I would debate more fun to play and a greater game. But I started doing that, and then it evolved into having guests on. And then I already knew a lot of people in the community because I was already one of the top players online for online PLO. So in the community, I talked to all the guys. I was friends with a bunch of people. I was always very social, and I always met a lot of people in the industry. So then I started building up from there. So I only did podcasts for the first maybe year or two, and I worked in a couple of videos where I created them myself and I edited them myself. And then over time, it evolved more edited videos, and then equal amount of podcasts too. So my goal with the podcast has always been to get the top players in the online poker world on the show. And then it evolved in that, okay, well, I need to get the top poker players in the live arena as well, because then I can grow my audience. I can get to know more about them. And I think that's just how you grow a brand, is that if you want to, I guess, get more attention on you, or you want to have more success in terms of people watching or people paying attention, you need to get people on that people are interested in wanting to hear from or wanting to see. So in my eyes, I said, okay, I need to go attack this world. And then from there, I've tried to get all the big names on. I've gotten to know a lot of these people as well too. There's a mutual respect within me and with other people in the industry, which I've always tried to maintain from the very start. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't do, is they sort of disrespect themselves in the process of doing content or media in order to appease these certain kind of figures that they get on, who are more of these egotistical sort of diva-like personalities. So I think a lot of people demean themselves and put themselves down in order to get these people on your show or treat them a certain type of way. And that's never been my approach. And I think that is why I have the relationship with the guests and with my audience and my space in poker, is because I guess I look at it differently, in that you're not, just because you're a known person in the industry, right? Like we're both well-known people in the industry, right? So we both bring something to the table, and I'm going to treat you like I treat anyone else. And I'm not going to treat you from this sort of this vertical relationship. It's going to be a horizontal relationship. And I think that's one of the most important things that I've set out to do from day one that I noticed doesn't happen in a lot of other industries with media. And the media kind of look at themselves as beneath people in some sort of way, it feels like to me. And even how I'm treated by some people when I do interviews or do these things like that, you can tell that they're, and maybe this is just how it goes, the whole entire idea of catering or doing this or doing that for these certain type of personalities. But I think that's one of the biggest, most important things I've personally done with my approach is, and that's why I've grown the brand and the perception and these sorts of things like that in the world that I'm in, is that I try to treat everybody with respect. And these people that are always used to everyone catering to them and telling them yes and telling them no and never disagreeing with them, I try to approach like I would approach any other conversation.
It's like the guy saying that they don't know how to get the hot girl at the bar, right? Because the girl is used to being just every dude just bending over backwards. And then you're the dude. What movie was that? I think it was a Hitch or something with Will Smith, right? And he walks up to her and was like, hey, yeah, I'll take a drink when you're ready. Here's my money, thanks. And then walks away. And then she's just like, what? You know, it's because like
that's
you just,
yeah.
You know, it's like I'm not gonna beg and plead for your time. Like my time is just as valuable as yours. You know, for me, my time is more valuable because it's my time. You know, but at the same time, it's like I'm gonna respect you, but I'm also gonna demand respect for myself. And I think that's just an integrity thing. I think more people need to understand that. But I think a lot of the problem is because it's not very well known in society. You know, because ever since, you know, from the time you're born, obviously manners and all of that stuff and morals are taught to us as kids. So we're socially conditioned to learn that. But then all the way through the education system, we're always taught that we're not as good as the person that's above us. I mean, it's literally built into the education system. I'm not going to go dive into that rabbit hole because believe me, I could. Thomas knows this. But, you know, I think there's just something that needs to happen and it needs to change, because I love the way that you said it's like I'm not going to treat them like they're just oh so great, because with the second I treat them that they're oh so great, I'm automatically tilting it where if they're so great, then that means I'm not as great, because now I'm not talking to you as an equal. I'm talking to you like you're better than me, which by default will make me less of a person than you. And I think that just like how much of that comes from you having to go through the grind and sleeping on couches, sleeping on floors, and you know, really building that up so you have that respect, knowing you earned it, and you know a lot of these other people earned it, versus how much of that was from the house, the four walls that you grew up in as a child.
I don't know how much of it came from where I grew up, and I don't really know where that comes from. You know, I think it's an interesting kind of thought to think about is that where does that idea come from? And I think it comes from the idea that you always hear over and over that people want to be treated a certain type of way. And
golden rule.
Gain status or gain celebrity or gain this sort of thing like that, people stop treating them like they're like a human being, right? They treat them a different way. And I see how people treat me as well too. And I see how people talk to me, and you know, the interactions I have with people who are maybe fans or who know me from poker, or even other players in the industry, and their media people in the industry and business people in the industry. So now I see how they treat me, and you know, it's interesting. It's nice, right? You want to be looked up to in some type of way, but it's something that kind of makes me uncomfortable. And I think that I've always just wanted to say, okay, when I meet people, I'm gonna like, that's just not what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do these things. I just never, plus I've never thought like that really. I've never, because someone had more success than me, I've never said like, oh, you're better than me at whatever. It's just like, you've chosen to do one thing. You chose to gain knowledge in this area. You chose to put your effort in this area. And I chose to do this, and you're better than me at these things. I'm better than you at these things. And I don't really ever compare myself to anyone or anything like that. And I think that's been one of my main approaches for building content or building a business, is like, I don't really look at what anyone else does. And I'm not sitting there saying like, oh, this person did this, so like they're better than this or that. I've never really compared myself like that. It's always been a challenge against myself to keep getting better and better at what I do. And as long as I keep getting better at what I do, I'm always going to have success at whatever it is I do. So I guess I just never really, I never really thought of people in that way. And I think a lot of people do think about people in that way. If they're
you really hit the nail on the head. Because you said it right there, is that like you never compare yourself, and that's one of the leading causes of disappointment, right? Is like, and one is like an expectation of something happening, or two is going to be like comparing yourself, because it's like, if you're in a relationship, it's like, oh, they always do this. Okay, well, they're not us, so what does they have to do with us? Or if this person achieved all this success, well, they did that. Well, do you know everything else that's happening in their life compared to your life? So comparison, I think, is one of the leading causes to like unhappiness and failure, and just getting overly down on yourself when you don't need to be.
Interesting.
You
Yeah,
know?
I've never thought about the idea of comparing very much at all. It's never been something I've it's, I mean, it's such a big thing, right? And with
Oh,
obviously
it's
with social media, it's
huge.
always talked about, right? That people compare themselves, whether consciously or subconsciously, to other people that they
It's like
see.
Instagram's fake, right?
Yeah, a lot of ways. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about my Instagram for a little bit too, and I don't really post anything about who I really am in my real life on my Instagram for the most part. So on my stories, sometimes I'll post my workouts and I'll post my diet, but it's not a consistent effort for me. And I think
Uh-huh.
people's perception of me is maybe like half of the story about who I am and about how I think and about how I am. And I think a lot of times you want to share these certain things like that, but then the idea of being vulnerable, and then the idea of dealing with even what I've noticed is when I've been vulnerable in terms of shared things that don't make you always look positive in some way,
Yeah.
even the support you get from people is kind of uncomfortable and overwhelming in some ways, because like,
Authenticity.
what would
People
you
are
say?
drawn towards authenticity.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great strategy for building a business, right? That's for, if you want to build a personal brand and you can be authentic and be vulnerable with
Yep.
people, you're going to most likely have success, assuming that people agree with the kind of person that you are. Now, if
This
you
is
say
true.
I'm an asshole and I fucking hate people, and you know what, I whatever, like you these things that aren't socially acceptable, then you're maybe you're going to attract other people who think that way. But for the most part, the hate's going to be overwhelming from the other side, that you're probably going to give up and you're not going to keep going and you're not going to have success. So if you're authentic in the right ways,
For
then
sure.
people
I mean,
people
Hitler
are
was
gonna connect with that.
famous.
What?
Said Hitler
Oh,
was famous, but not in the way you want to be famous.
well, not probably not to us, but maybe to the German people, they connected with that. I mean, that's together. I don't know enough about that to even know exactly.
Way off target now. Off topic.
Crazy right there, man. Yeah.
Thought we were going to talk about poker, not the first right.
Hey, man, my examples go
So
extreme.
are you
That's how we
playing?
do it.
Have you been playing at the casinos? Do you play win a lot?
I go to the Wynn sometimes because I live near the Wynn here in Las Vegas. But I think for me, it's just anytime I get super enthralled in poker, I just tend to not focus on the rest of my life. And I think
see.
for right now, my opportunity that I have in terms of bettering my own knowledge in the content space and in the rest of the world space, I feel like that's more valuable for me to focus on right now versus going to play. And now you want to stay sharp and you want to stay connected to the game. But I think for me, I'll always be sharp enough to be able to understand how to get good at poker and continue to talk about poker for the rest of my life. So I think that my goals right now aren't really as play as much base. I just don't think it's healthy for me to do that. And I don't think it is the best use of my time long term right now.
Okay. Have you been keeping in touch with a lot of the other poker players, and are you still diving in that realm?
Yeah, I think I still do a lot of poker content. Most of my content is poker, and I'm still very active on poker Twitter and in the Instagram poker world, on the poker forum. So I still know what's happening in the industry. I'm still, I guess, like one of the voices who speaks on the important issues. Or I just did the investigation where the guy was cheating on the live stream, and we dove deep into that to uncover that situation. So I still feel a responsibility in a lot of ways to continue to be a voice in the poker world, because a lot of people right now aren't authentic, and they are saying and doing things because that's how they make a living, and that's how they get jobs, and that's how these poker sites sponsor them.
Right.
So, and also not many people have knowledge about what's going on in terms of behind the scenes, in terms of at the tables, and they don't have the voice or the confidence or whatever it is to speak out about these issues. Because what happens is that when you speak out about an issue, it's not always overwhelmingly positive, and you're going to get feedback that's not positive. So you have to put yourself out there and then deal with the repercussions if you potentially say something that isn't socially agreed upon amongst your community. And I think a lot of people out there just don't want to fucking deal with that. So I don't mind putting myself out there. I don't mind saying something that people are going to give you, this sort of unknowledgeable feedback, and they're going to give you their takes, and then you got to read it, and you got to go through it, you got to process it. So it can be a very overwhelming experience, and I can understand why more people aren't willing to be voices of their community, especially in a place like poker where it's so money driven, and money is the way that you decide success in poker. And when you're not making money, you're stressed out, and it's very, very hard to stay competitive at a high level. So you don't really want to branch outside the actual focusing on playing poker space in terms of the content space, because if you're good at poker, well, then you're probably making a lot of money, and in content, you don't make any money doing this kind of stuff. So all the people who are smart and who are good at what really want to waste their time on it for a lot of different reasons, or not waste their time, but spend their time on it because they're much better off just playing poker and having success there.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because if you play, I know for me, if I play poker, you go 2-day sessions, 2-night sessions where you're playing into the morning. You're not going to get any content. If you have to do a podcast tomorrow night, and you get into a good game, and you're stuck in you're stuck in there a few thousand, you're not going to go. You're not going to sleep. You're not going to eat, and then you're going to feel like crap. So I get it. That makes a lot of sense. You have to pick one world over the other. Basically, you're still entrenched in it. You're still doing things with it because it's still your passion, but you're just taking your passion in a different direction.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm trying to use the knowledge and the ability I've built up at poker, and then do other things with that right now in the poker space. And then eventually, I mean, what you said is a very good point, right? Is that sometimes you play these long sessions and you're stressed out, and it's just hard to be consistent with both, and then also do both at a higher level.
Right.
And I didn't do things that when I started, I don't think my stuff was high level. I don't think I was very good at what I did. There was really no one making content, and I got better and better at it over time. And I think a lot of people who are out there right now who are thinking about getting into content, they see that level that I might be at, or other people who are at the top of the content space might be at. And they say, well, I don't know. I don't think I can do it quite like that. And they don't want to put it.
Didn't start like that.
Right. Like they don't want to put in a year of, it's kind of like the comparison thing. I've heard that from a lot of people in my industry, is like, well, you do a podcast where you get these people on and you have these type of conversations. So why would I start doing a show like that? And I think that's
have you ever
a bad mindset to have in a lot of ways. It kind of sucks, right? To have that mindset, I think, but a lot of people do have that mindset.
It's very true.
Do you have you ever heard of what was it called? On Tilt Radio? Do you remember that? I don't know if they're still around.
Heard the name before, but I'm not super familiar.
Okay, so back in the day, I mean, when I say back in the day, I'm talking maybe 6 years ago, right? It sounds such like forever ago, but it's 6 years ago. I mean, a lot's happened between 2013 and now, right? Especially in the poker world. So when we were doing this, Attack Poker, and we're not around anymore, there was a site called On Tilt Radio. And what it was a radio station. And I remember her name. Her name was Pam. I think we're still friends on Facebook or something. But she would have guests, poker players, come on the radio. And she was located out in the Midwest or something. And she had a pretty decent following. Now with the internet, I mean, we had the internet back then. And it's basically what we're doing now with podcasts. We just labeled it. We just call it a podcast instead of a radio talk show. And so let's talk about how reinventing yourself. I mean, basically, like you said, you started playing poker and you had to reinvent yourself. How does that play a role in what you're going to do in the future now?
What do you mean? Can you be a little more, I guess, specific with the question in terms of reinvention, meaning how you apply your ability or skills that you gained in one area to other areas?
Right. You were kind of talking earlier. You were saying that you want to delve into some other things also, right? Let's say, are you going to stick with poker, or are you going to try to reinvent yourself and kind of move and shift your podcast to other realms also?
Yeah, it's something I thought about a lot, and I've done some other content in the past year. I did some UFC videos that are by far my most popular video. My most popular video was Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Conor McGregor. They had a post-fight brawl at UFC. I think it was 239 last October. and I did a video, maybe 239, 229. I did a video and it has 18 million views on YouTube. So it's by far my most popular video of all time.
Wow.
And then I did a few other ones that did 1 million views as well too, right after this video happened. And that was when I realized, like, I always knew I could, I have like, I always know I can make videos that a lot of people watch. I think the template is quite easy in my mind. And I'm always good or I think I'm good at putting together complex information, making it easy for people to understand at a more basic kind of level. So like, and for that, my goal was I watched it happen. I knew there was a lot of cell phone footage on the internet of what took place. So what I did was I found every single piece of cell phone footage, because it's not copyright, that you can replay back. Whereas you can't replay a broadcast back because you're going to get copyright on your videos. They're going to get taken down. So what I did was I watched all the UFC videos leading up to that. So I had more context of what exactly took place and why these guys got into a brawl. So I was able to answer questions that people had about what took place that they didn't know exactly where to find that. And I was able to deliver that information in a excited way to get people that were watching it excited about what's happening. And then I was able to tell a visual story for what took place in terms of the production that I used in the story to make it engaging on that platform. So you are engaged in terms of what you're seeing visually. You're engaged in that you want to know more about the story. You're engaged in that it's a very popular culture topic that you're just captivated by because it's two people, Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov, who are the top of their industry at fighting. So I sort of like took all these tips and ideas that I've accumulated over time making content and put them together. And at the right time, I spent about 20 hours on the video too. And I was able to answer multiple questions, keep that retention high. And there was a lot of engagement from people that weren't my subscribers on YouTube, which is what puts these videos up in the algorithm on YouTube. And also there was other content created around the moment. So it makes it evergreen in that people are always going to want to know what the hell happened there. So it was the perfect execution of an idea in terms of having enough knowledge about what took place in the industry to be able to put together with that. And it was like, but it was something I thought I could do. I just didn't know for sure. It's never tried it before. And that was the first video I ever tried outside poker. And then since then, I've recreated that to some extent in poker, and they've always had success in poker too. And you basically just take a popular culture topic, you identify, okay, what happened here? And then you try to piece the story together in a way that makes it easy for people to understand. It's really not a too complex of a thing, but that's the formula, right? That's what you do.
Nice.
Your packaging's good, you title's good, the thumbnail's good, the actual execution in the video in terms of different engagement points is something that you think about, and you try to bring the energy to it. You try to answer questions, you try to go deep on the topic so that you know what the hell you're talking about. And with that, you're going to have success at whatever it is you do in the content space.
I love that you said that. You got to know what you're about ready to talk about. That's why I brought Thomas on.
I don't know how much poker we're talking about though.
No, he's hitting a lot of topics like, content and, not diving into
great stuff.
Not giving it, like, you're giving like some life lessons on this thing, man.
Absolutely.
Well, that's how I always think about things.
Not even about content. It's about life.
Right. Like, I don't really think about, like, my podcast isn't poker strategy. My content is more mindset, the lifestyle, things that can apply to having success in whatever area that you want to have success in. So that's a lot of what I talk about on my show and a lot of what I personally study and think about. So the actual poker strategy itself in terms of how to play a specific hand is not that interesting to me anymore because I feel like I've learned a lot. I could always learn more, and I could better sharpen my skills. But what's more interesting to me is just the soft skills and everything else that surrounds the game itself, because I think those things can apply to whatever it is that you do in terms of having success, whether it's with a family, whether it's with content, a business, or podcast, or whatever.
And
so what would be some of those, like, a handful of those soft skills?
Yeah, in terms of having success at something that you're trying to do.
Yeah, and so in terms of, like, how you said, like, it can be success with your family or on a podcast, not necessarily just at a poker table.
Right. I think
what are some of those soft skills?
Yeah, like having the vision itself and telling yourself that, which is kind of like this cliche thing I've always heard, but it's what I've always done, is that you tell yourself, okay, I want to have the best podcast in the world, or
self-talk.
I want to become one of the best poker players in the world. So once you actually identify what it is that you want to do, and you consistently tell yourself that, and you talk about other people, or you talk about it internally, or you talk about it out loud. So for me, I always wanted to get to the high stakes of poker. And when I started doing my podcast, I said I want to become like the Daniel Negreanu of my game for Pot Limit Omaha. So I wanted to become an ambassador of poker. I wanted to create the top podcast, and I wanted to talk about the major issues that were happening in poker. So that was always my goal from step one. And now, okay, well, I want to have some of the best content in the entire world. I want to have one of the best podcasts in the entire world in terms of talking about things that people care about, having these conversations about these topics, and hopefully educating people or entertaining them or helping them become a better version of themselves in some type of way. The production side of things and the marketing side of things and all these different facets of exactly what a podcast or what content is. Right now, I'm telling myself that I want to have or do that the best in the entire world. So what exactly that looks like, I don't know in the end, but that's the point I'm working towards right now. And I believe that I'll get to that point in time. So that's kind of what I mean by just having the vision in your mind or having the big picture goal. I think a lot of people that I know don't really have that big picture goal, or they might have a big picture goal, but it's more of a smaller scale and they don't view it as a big picture, which might be like, I want to have a healthy relationship with my family, or I want to have a healthy relationship with my girlfriend. I think a lot of people, they look at that and they say, well, that's not enough. And I think that certainly can be enough for people out there too, but they don't view it that way. So they don't take it as seriously, or they don't put as much effort into learning about the subject. So I think when I like to do things, I like to really deeply think about it. I like to study a lot. I like to gain as much knowledge as I can on these different things. And I think that's what allows me. I thought this was normal, but apparently people don't do this. But I think that's a big thing for me is, kind of soft. But the soft skill, right, is just identification of what exactly it is that you want to do and having the vision. And I feel like things sort of get built around there. But I mean, I wrote a book on the qualities to be a successful poker player. So I do think there are a few other ones too. I'm curious, like, what you guys think are some of those important things as you guys talk with people, or I'm sure you both have put a lot of thought into this. What do you guys?
Yeah, that's why earlier I was sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. That's why earlier I was just talking about reinventing yourself. Sometimes you're doing something and you have to reinvent yourself. You got to say like, hey, this isn't working. Maybe I need to change something, tweak something. And then, like you said, from poker you went to a UFC. I mean, there's no more stark contrast than sitting on a table and then going to a UFC fight, right? And that's what got you that 18 million views. And, just by reinventing yourself a little bit. And it doesn't take much. It's just, a little tweak could mean so much, right?
Yeah, it's great. It's a really, really great point. Yeah.
Any other skills you learned from? I feel like poker.
I almost went into host mode there, since people know I've probably done hundreds of different shows with people. So I almost went into host mode and asked Jeff. I would say, Jeff,
bring it on.
I was almost going to say, Jeff, and I feel myself, I've been trying to do more of these on the other side as the guest. I can feel myself, I go into host mode so easily in terms of like Jeff, like what do you think one of the biggest soft skills that you feel like apply to
there you go
a broad industry, right? Like, what do you think?
I think one of the most beneficial one is going to, I hate to say it, is just kindness. Because whether you're a professional poker player, whether you're a professional athlete, whether you're, a janitor, whether you're a CEO, whether you're dealing with your family, kindness will take you further in any one of those relationships. Because if you just, like, if you treat people like they're below you, pretty soon you're going to be on that level in one way, shape, or form in your life. Because if you're constantly just talking down to people, like, you're burning bridges before you even know what bridges you're burning, or you're letting that type of character be the definition of who you are. And then so you might be degrading to somebody and speaking negatively to somebody while your kids are standing right behind you watching you. And then when your kids grow up, they're like, I'm never going to talk to this person again because this guy treats everybody like trash. So you just lost your kids when they were 6, but you just had your head stuck up your butt because you thought you were better than somebody. And so I think kindness is like, it's a soft skill. It's an easy skill when you're a child, but then as we grow older into, teenagers and young adults, and that's when we have stuff happen more. And that's when we start building up these walls and not letting people in and being like, no, everybody hates us, blah, blah, screw this life, blah, blah, everybody's a dick, da, da, da. I'm going to treat everybody like trash because I'm better than whatever it is. Everybody has a different situation. But I think one of the most important things is just kindness. It's like the same way that you would treat a server at a restaurant versus a janitor versus shaking the CEO of a company's hand. The way that you treat all three of them should be the same. Like you should treat the janitor just as important as a CEO, just as important as a server, just as important as your mom. It's like, how would you want somebody treating your grandma? Then that's how you should be treating them.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point you bring up. I am very, very kind. I feel like to most people, except people that sometimes come in the comments and they might be negative. And I usually, I'm pretty good at trolling because I wasn't always kind. And I used to be very sarcastic and probably an asshole in some ways without even realizing what I was doing, because that's the environment I grew up around, where my family's very sarcastic. They're needling, they're picking on me. And it might not be in a mean way, but that's how I grew up. And I noticed maybe before I started content, like 6 or 7 years ago, one of my friends said, like, you're kind of an asshole. And I was like, well, I never even knew that. So what I've made a very concerted effort is I try to be kind, and people I meet in the industry, I'm kind to everybody I meet. I try to treat everybody with respect. Going back to that idea of respect, is that I have respect for everybody that I meet. And if you disrespect me, then sometimes I might feel some type of way. But for the most part, that doesn't happen when you treat others with respect and when you talk nicely about everyone and when you treat people with kindness. And that's a very interesting point that I've never really thought about. That I that's just kind of what I've become in a lot of ways. Because I think I saw what my words could do to people the first couple of years I did content. And I didn't really mean these things as insulting things, but you say some things as a joke in some ways, and then and you hear from another person, they go, yeah, like, it really hurt me, man, because you have a big voice. And when you say things, people listen. And if you say something about me, even though you don't mean it as this negative thing, other people are going to take it in a negative way, and they're going to look down on me, or they're going to make fun of me, or they're going to say this or say that. So once I heard that from a few people, I was like, yeah, it's a really good point. I don't want to do that. So that's why I don't really, I just try not to talk very negative about people in general. Even if the conversation's negative, I try to bring up positives about people as well too, and say, okay, like, I try to be kind, and in terms
combat the negativity.
Right. And in terms of the interaction with other people that are peers in your industry, I try to treat them with respect, and I try to be kind to them. When I meet people, that are fans or that are whatever, I just try to do that. I never thought about that ever until right now when you said that. But I think that is an important thing. But I also see people that aren't very kind that have success too in a lot of ways. So it's like,
oh, absolutely. You know what I mean? Yeah. It depends on it depends on the circle that you have around you, or the type of people that you want to be, in business with, or, in partnership with, or whatnot. And yes, are there dickheads that are making a whole lot of money, and but it's also dependent on what is your definition of success,
right?
Because if you're just looking at the size of their bank account, or how many businesses or companies they own, or their net worth, and they're a-holes, then it's like, well, what's your definition of success? Sure, financially they're winning, but what's everything else?
Right. I mean,
what's going to be written on their tombstone or on their headstone? What's going to be said at their memorial? What type of impact is going to be had when something like that happens? I mean, because when Prince died, dude, I mean, sure, it was hot for a day, but you know what I mean? How much of and he was a huge celeb. So if you're worried about, like, so it's all relative to all that's to say is, like, it's all relative to what that person's definition of success is. Okay. Because you could have the kindest person, but look at Mother Teresa, right?
Are you familiar with the history of Mother Teresa?
Not completely,
deep in the Mother Teresa lab, like enlighten us a little bit. Give me some.
But you know what I mean. But she was always trying to help people. She was always giving. She was always caring. She was always respectful. She always demanded, respect and care for anybody that's around her. It's kind of like one of those, you walk into the room and she's there. It's like, oh, I don't want to even, like, even if the person is like a dick normally, if you're standing right next to somebody like on that level, it's like, I don't necessarily, maybe I'll put myself in check, because I'm not trying to act like that when, like, this person's here.
Mm.
You know, so it's all relative to that person's character and what their definition of success is. Because sure, there's a lot of people that have achieved monetary success, but there could be the world's most amazing father that wants no recognition for it, and nobody's ever going to know about it. But his family absolutely adores him
Mm-hmm.
from everything that he's doing. You know, it's
Yeah.
like what's his name? I don't know how old you're, but the actor that played the dad in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
What's that guy's name? What's his
Rick
name?
Moranis.
Rick Moranis. I think that's
Is
his
that
name, right?
you know what I mean?
Rick
So
Moranis.
everybody, it was like I saw a little thing once. It was like, if you ever wonder why this guy disappeared off of the movie scenes when he pretty much at the peak of his career, and it was because he wanted to be the best dad that he could to his kids.
Mm-hmm.
So he left the industry so he could be a full-time dad.
Yeah.
So those kids aren't going to know him as like, dude, you're the guy, you're the movie star from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It's like, no, that's my dad. He's like the best dad. We did everything with him, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a very relative answer.
Yeah, I think
You
that's
know?
I mean, the idea of just what is success to each
Yeah,
person.
it's
is a
all
very interesting
relative.
sort
What
of
is your
topic, right?
definition?
Yeah.
What's your definition of success?
Yeah,
Because
as
it's
you
going to be
mentioned,
different
right?
to it's going to be different to everybody else.
Right.
Every
You-
person
you
can have
could-
their own definition.
I think a lot of people feel ashamed in some type of way that they want to be the best dad because when they
That's
look
because they
around them,
compare.
right, they see these people put on pedestals that are rappers or that are musicians or that are vloggers or that are these influencers now. So when you see these people getting praise and then the people that are around you in terms of the family or friends that you know are also praising these people, it's easy to look at yourself and say, well, I have a regular job and I try to be the best father I am and my family loves me, but look at this guy, he's doing this, look at this person, so
Yep.
I feel like the respect or the admiration for people that choose to do that isn't on that same level as it is with other things. So I can understand how that would make a man or make a woman feel down about themselves and about what they've achieved. And I think that's kind of unfortunate that that's the case. And maybe there's people out there that don't feel that way, that do that, right? And I feel like I'm a little bit uneducated in terms of really understanding how other types of people think these days, because I've been very entrenched in my own bubble in a lot of ways. And
Good luck trying to figure it out.
yeah, like a lot of people I follow aren't the people that are living these lifestyles. So I feel like I'm out of touch in a lot of ways with the family man life, right? Or the family woman. I don't even know what the hell these people are, how they even think about life in some ways. So I can't even presume to understand exactly where they're coming from or what they struggle with or anything like that.
Well, being a father myself, I do the best I can for my kid. Everything is about my son, making sure that I'm a good father to him, and I'm his biggest celebrity. You know what I mean? When I come home, like there's nobody more important than me, right? So I mean, being a father is a wonderful thing. I hope both of you. Well, Jeff, you
Yeah,
got
I
it,
got
what,
kids.
6 times? You have like a football team, don't you?
Yeah, nice try.
Yeah. Do you have any kids?
No,
Joe?
No, I don't have any.
no. Yeah, but I mean, it's the same thing for me. It's like for a lot of it is making sure that I'm doing what I know is best for them, and it's not always going to be the funnest way to do it. Because my kids are older than Thomas's. Because I have the teenage daughter, and that whole fun deal. Son's 12, and then my younger daughter, she's 10, but my oldest, she's 14. Going on 15.
Wow.
And so it's, in high school. So it's all those years where she thinks the peers are wiser than the parents. And so it's a lot of what I, just with what I've learned through my adulthood is
Watch out.
just kind of like, okay, no,
she's
it's
gonna
like,
move out.
Good luck.
You're gonna move out to Chicago and sleep on the floor and play poker.
Hey, if that's what's going to truly make her happy, then go for it.
Right.
Because I think one of the biggest mistakes that parents make is keeping their kids in a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Because once they get released into the wild landscape of life, they're going to be screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And Joey, it sounds like your parents, I know you said she cried when she saw you sleeping on the ground, but it sounds like they were at least, supported. They're like, I guess they gave you your space to grow, huh?
Well, when I was a teenager growing up, I think that my mom, I used to live with my mom, so I think that she was working a lot, trying to make money and trying to pay for schooling and stuff like that. So she wasn't around as much as I got older. So I was by myself a lot more, and I always played a lot of sports. So I was always busy with sports, and I'd always play sports at home too, and I'd always play video games. And I was kind of just entrenched in that whole typical, I guess, like teenage male life there. So a lot of that was she gave me her own space. I don't think on purpose necessarily, but then as I got older and I chose to not go to college and pursue my own way of living, she was not fucking happy with me for sure. No, there was no like, hey, go find this. It was like, you need to get a fucking job. You got to go to school. You got to do something with your life. I spent all this money on you. I took care of you for 18 years. What the hell? Why are you gambling?
Wow, not the guilt trip from mom saying I kept you alive.
Oh man, no, listen,
Carried you for 9 months.
Debatably, right? Like that's what. There was no support in terms of me pursuing a professional poker playing career, right? And we can argue how much support there is now, right? Like,
well, that's like the same thing. Like the kid right now saying, "I want to be in EA Sports." Yeah,
that's my kid.
Like big guy, and it's like, well, yeah, that's a real thing now. When we were kids, no, I want to be like a professional gamer. Like, no, that didn't really exist.
Fortnite,
no, it didn't exist.
What's that Fortnite dude's name? Ninja or something? He makes millions doing Twitch, or what's that? Not Twitch streaming. He's on Mixer now. And he's making.
He just does live streaming. Yeah, he does live. He puts a lot of his stuff on YouTube, and he has
all those guys are making bank.
It's ridiculous.
Like the technology's changed the game. I mean, look at half the conversation has been about content. This type of content creation was never even capable. We would have never, 10 years ago, we would have never been able to do this.
6 years ago, I just telling you about until radio. They were calling it radio up until 6 years ago, doing exactly what we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
No, I love it. But Joey, I do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on with us. But real quick, I want to make sure people are able to find you. So
sure.
Give us a 2-minute Joey advertisement.
Well,
where can we find you? Where are you at?
One of the things that's actually held me back in terms of, I guess, an elevated status from where I'm at now is I'm terrible at self-promotion. So, you can follow me on Twitter at Joey Ingram 1. I'm probably the most active there. And then Instagram, PapiGTO, PAPIGTO. But if you don't like poker and you're on my YouTube, like, I don't know how much you're really going to fucking get out of my YouTube channel.
I love poker, man.
There are some videos that you would enjoy, but you like some of my stuff's long. My YouTube strategy is really bad, actually, because it's a lot of long form mixed with short form, and
that's awesome.
Packaging's unsure if you're unfamiliar, so it's actually not that ideal for if you're not a poker fan. So I think that the best place is my Twitter and Instagram, and then as I start doing more things that are more mainstream pop culture sort of things, or more general ideas and topics for video formats, then more people can watch me. But right now it's pretty heavily poker focused. For better or worse.
I love it.
I am supposed to have a potential presidential.
No, you're gonna get Andrew Yang on there.
Andrew Yang on the show, so that'll be a very good discussion. And
oh, nice.
So that's supposed to be coming up.
Oh, so when are you gonna have him on for us?
Well,
when are we all gonna be on a call?
So it's gonna happen, but we're deciding the date, if it's gonna be in person or if it's gonna be over the internet. And I think it's gonna be in person here in Vegas. So
that'd be nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, I talked to them. So I think that's gonna be exactly.
That's crazy.
Hey, by the way, I also have I don't know if you know Ellie Elezra, the poker player.
Ellie, yeah.
Lisa Hamilton. I can get them on the show. I mean, I'll go talk to them.
I've known both of them for a while. Yeah, Ellie's he's a pretty big fan of kind of what I do, and Lisa or Linda Hamilton.
Lisa Hamilton.
Lisa Hamilton. Okay.
Yeah, she's the only female bracelet winner for the World Series of Poker.
I think it's Linda Hamilton. Then she works with card players. She does cruises and stuff like that.
No. You must be talking about Linda Hamilton. My friend is Lisa Hamilton.
There's a Lisa Hamilton. Okay, I know. I'm unfamiliar with her then. Okay.
Yeah, and then I got some poker buddies that I can kind of hook you up with.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Set him up with Dewey.
It sounds like you've been around for some time.
Well, if you look me up on Poker News, you'll see I've been because I was the marketing. I guess I did all of the marketing for Attack Poker. I met with Ellie. We sponsored him. He was actually one of our poker pros. Luke Swartz was also poker pro.
Oh yeah, Luke had one of my most popular episodes. Me and Luke were on the show. So yeah.
Oh, nice. And he's very good friends with Chad too.
Oh, Chad, you said the name was Eli?
Ellie, yeah. Black Friday. They call him Black Friday Chad.
Black Friday Chad, Jesus.
Yeah, one year, what was it? I think it was 2 years ago. So he just, I can talk about it now because he's out. So he just got released from, serving his time for the poker processing. And it was right before World Series of Poker started. And we had him enter the 10K. And he came in with a orange jumpsuit with shackles. And we had these beautiful girls dressed up as police officers. And we walked in the reel just like that into the poker tournament. It was hilarious. I loved it.
Wow. I mean, I don't know much about this guy, so I'm going to do a little, I've been going down the deep dive in terms of the old school poker cheating scandals that happened with Ultimate Bet and Absolute Poker. Yeah. So he seems like he's more involved on the payment processing side, which is one of the reasons why online poker got shut down in America. But
Yeah.
so I'll have to dive down this little rabbit hole here and see exactly what the hell this guy was up to.
All right. So there's going to be about 10 more episodes.
What's that?
There's going to be about 10 more episodes now because of this.
Well, man, I love talking about poker. So anytime we want to talk poker, that's, some bad beat stories. I got a bunch of those.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a little different perspective than me, just in terms of the position that you had and the experience that you and it sounds like you are very excited about poker. You enjoy poker too. So
you know what? I mean, I would run a home game here if I could, if I had the time. But like I said, poker just, I mean, we used to do it once a week, like come over on Sundays. We do the home meal, and we take a little, something for the house just to pay for the dinner and
that might be illegal. We're not supposed to talk
nothing illegal. No, nothing like that. But yeah, so I loved it. You know what? I kind of like that more than going to the casinos and I don't know. But I'll tell you something. When you go to Vegas and you start going to these casinos and playing on a regular, you make some very good friends.
Mm-hmm.
You meet a lot of good people too. So, are you into fantasy football at all?
No, not really. I went down a DFS hole. I did like a DFS show one year for Roto Grinders, which was one of the big sites in terms of daily fantasy sports.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of into it, but I just spent way too much time consumed by it. And I can't do it unless I'm putting my full effort into getting better. So it was taking over too much of my life. And it was already kind of dying. It's going downhill.
I love
There's
it.
already the same issues that were already in poker, but they happened way sooner. So I decided to kind of stay away. But a lot of my friends are in DFS and they do a lot of content there. And they're some of the top players now. So I stay up to date on what's happening there, but don't really play it as much.
Oh man, I love it. In fact, I do a football podcast for myself and cool. my fantasy team and players.
That's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. DFS is funny. You talk about DFS too, because I love daily. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. But anyways, thanks a lot, man. You great guest.
No problem.
Thank you, sir. And make sure you guys check him out on Instagram. It's Poppy GTO, PAPI GTO. Or if you're in Vegas, just hang around at the Win. Maybe he'll catch him.
I saw someone today at the dermatologist. He said, "Oh, I always see her on the Win." I said, "Oh, well,
Yeah, it's my spot."
Perfect. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Joey. You have a wonderful day.
I appreciate it, man.
Take care. Bye.
Also, don't forget to follow me on social. You can look me up, The Real Jeff Bill. Also on Instagram, we have our Blast Talks podcast page. Make sure you subscribe and follow both of those accounts to make sure you're staying up to date on the new content, all that fun stuff. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.